The party leaders paused today, maintaining a dignified silence. But the electioneering continued without them. The Conservatives and Labour arguing about money. The Tories have published what they claim would be the cost of a Jeremy Corbyn government over a 5-year parliament, saying his policies would cost an extra £1.2 trillion, a big number all over the front of Conservative supporting newspapers, and a message that Labour are spendthrifts.
1.2 trillion, well, it will be absolutely reckless and will leave this country with an economic crisis within months.
The Chancellor did admit arriving at the figure with a bit of educated guesswork.
Over 50% of the costings are from Labour's own figures. The rest of them have either come from independent external sources, and in some cases, yes, we have had to work them out ourselves, but we've done that in a reasonable way.
Labour says the Tories have got their maths wrong. The Conservatives use a CBI estimate for renationalisation plans of £196 billion. Labour's already called that inaccurate and incoherent scaremongering. The Tories say a 4-day working week would cost £85 billion. Labour call that nonsense, as the policy would be brought in over 10 years, not 5. And the Conservatives claim abolishing private schools would cost £35 billion, even though Labour's now said it would tax, not axe them. Labour says it's ludicrous for the Tories to assume every policy passed at conference will be in the manifesto, and that everything in the manifesto would happen straight away under Jeremy Corbyn.
This is an absolute work of fiction by the Conservatives. You can't trust a word that Johnson and his ministers say on this issue. We will have a fully costed manifesto in due course when we launch that.
Both parties would open their wallets if they won power, but Labour's promising twice the investment spending pledged by the government. This economist says Labour's plans might not add up to £1 trillion, but they would massively increase the size of the state.
We know that they want to spend a lot of money on renationalising a number of industries. We know from their last manifesto that they were looking at very big increases elsewhere, and they've made more promises since then. So we're certainly looking at a position in which the Labour Party quite openly, quite clearly is saying, look, we are going to increase public spending really dramatically to levels we've not seen in a very long time.
We'll see Labour's actual costings and the Tories in their manifestos in the coming weeks. Then we'll see whose claims add up. But we know headline-grabbing numbers sometimes stick in the public memory long after statisticians say they're misleading.
Well, joining me now from Oxford is Labour's Treasury spokesperson, Annalisa Dodds. Annalisa Dodds, how far wrong is this £1.2 trillion figure?
Well, it's very, very far wrong. I mean, it really feels like the Conservatives have just tried to wave a magic wand over this. And I know that we're getting into panto season, but, you know, we really shouldn't be there with the Conservative government. They've already admitted that they don't have a sound basis for many of these costings. And, you know, there is one big difference between Labour and the Conservatives when it comes to our spending pledges. We've said that when it comes to consumption spending, so paying for our public services, yes, we would change the tax system. In particular, we would require the top 5% of people by income to pay more tax. We would also tax profitable companies more, and we would do that so that we had the funds for decent public services.
Well,
we've been very, very open about that.
Okay.
We were open about it at the last election.
Well,
we'll be open at the subsequent election as well.
Let's be a little more open tonight on the programme then, because the last manifesto you costed at £48.6 billion. So is it going to be more or less than that, this next manifesto?
Well, we have made additional commitments that we want to see through. Equally, some of the measures that we were going to use to revenue raise have actually been adopted by the current government, quite rightly. So, for example, many of our tax avoidance measures have been adopted by the current government. So we need to look at how we will be raising additional revenue as well. But I think that is what a responsible party that seeks to govern should do. It should be setting out how it will pay for its pledges. We were the only major party to do that at the last general election. And, you know, I hope that the Conservatives will be matching us at this election, because so far, for example, they've said that they'll have additional police officers, etc., additional nurses, they haven't said how they're going to pay for that sustainably,
well,
and I think that's a big problem.
We'll ask them that as well. But one thing is clear from what you've already said. The Shadow Chancellor said that there was going to be investment, quote, on a scale never seen before in this country. £150 billion social transformation fund over 5 years, £250 billion 10-year green transformation fund. I mean, it might not be £1.2 trillion the cost of a Labour government, but it could be quite close, couldn't it?
Well, when we're talking about that kind of investment, we're talking about an economic transformation that will actually grow the size of the economic pie for the future.
But we don't know how much
the UK is actually not doing very well. Sorry, I couldn't hear that. Sorry,
we don't know how much it will grow the pie by. So you talked about a magic wand. You're waving your own magic wand, aren't you?
Well, no, I don't think that's right. I mean, we've got to face up to those long-range problems. I mean, the UK has got the most regionally unbalanced economy in Europe. It's even more unbalanced than the US is. If we continue with that, as we have doing, with that actually intensifying, then we'll have less revenue in the future because we'll have many of our regions not performing to the level that we should be. Again, we've actually seen GDP shrinking because of the chaos around the government's wrong-headed Brexit strategy. So actually what Labour is saying is we need to deal with these long-term problems and then we'll grow the size of the economic pie in the future.
Okay, you can't tell me the size of the pie, what you're going to take out of it. The Conservatives can't say either for them. But the problem for you, isn't it, that the figure is now out there, that 1.2 trillion figure is out there. The danger, isn't it, that people will look at that and it will just raise doubts about Labour's economic competency, even if it's not right to the last decimal point?
Well, I have confidence, actually, in the British public. You know, people did look at our plans last time when they found out how we were saying we would spend and how we were saying we would generate revenue. Many people supported that, actually, and they recognised that, for example, our tax system isn't fair when we've got some people who are very, very well off in the top 5% having had their taxes cut by the Conservatives. So actually people liked our message then, not enough because we didn't win the general election. I hope we will be in a different situation for this election.
Okay.
So actually I'm very confident that as people hear more about it, they will come to support Labour's plans. You know, we're open about it. I hope the Tories will be open about their plans too.
OK, we'll press them as well, of course. Annalisa Dodds, thank you very much.